Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, conservatives and liberal, welcome to Town Hall 19. Welcome. We are about to do something that no other crowd in this town can do so enthusiastically. I invite you to stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bravo! My name is Dave Dino. I am your anonymous announcer on AM870 The Answer. No. You may know me from such commercial hits as Dr. Giuliani, the Nerve MD, or David Ortiz Advisors, or any number of other award-winning, selling commercials. As a matter of fact, in my department, we like to say that we interrupt these commercials for a brief program break. Don't quote me. And one more pitch. A great program. Every Saturday and every Sunday at 5 p.m., you can listen to Champions of Justice. Make sure you tune it in. It's a great program. Among those that I want to recognize today, a voice that you hear, and today you get to put a face to it. He is the newsman on The Morning Answer, as well as the newsman on Dennis Prager. He also is the host every Sunday at 9 a.m. of an award-winning program called Sunday Morning Newsmakers, and you can look it up at sundaymorningnewsmakers.com. It is the most listened to program on the weekends on AM870. I want to introduce over here, Larry Marino. Let's hear it for Larry. Come on over here, Larry. Walk all the way across. I want everyone to see you. He's actually on duty today doing interviews. Give him a hand over here. As you came in today, you noticed tables with our sponsors. Town Hall would not be possible without the support of these really wonderful sponsors. These are businesses that you have heard advertise on AM870 The Answer. I encourage you to visit their tables on the way out because every one of these sponsors offers something that can actually better your life. We are very careful in who we put on the air as sponsors. We vet them very thoroughly. These are great people. We have a great friend of KRLA, Arif Halaby from Total Financial Solutions. The host of a very daring weekend program, The Naked Truth Report, Kathleen Wells is out there. For any of you parents or grandparents who have children who are going to be entering college in about the next 2 to 3 years, let me tell you, the process is maddening. We have a sponsor that takes all the madness out of it. We have Josh Ulrich and his team at College Funding Experts. Stop by and see them. One of Larry Elder's favorite sponsors. We have our friend Tomar from Southwest Construction out there. Some folks that I always enjoy visiting with and who provide tremendous service on the decor in your home. Gary and Cindy Block from Drapery Works. You can actually meet them out there. They've become celebrities. Here's a fun one for you. The Magic Man himself, Brian, of Professor Rag's Magic Company. You have any kind of event going on, you want Professor Rags. Go visit Professor Rags. And last, but certainly not least, a wonderful longtime client of AM870 has helped out hundreds of our listeners, David Ortiz with David Ortiz Advisors. So stop by their tables and say hi to him. Now, I have been waiting for this for a long time because I get to introduce the hosts of The Morning Answer with Brian and Jen. And I thought about, what would I say? How would I introduce these two diametrically opposed personalities? It was a dark and stormy night when the good ship Constitution weighed anchor and set sail for another daring run through the Cape of Media Indifference. Our good co-captains and all the brave lads and lasses of the crew steered past the rocks of liberal ruin and around the shoals of political shenanigans. And they turned their wee but sturdy craft into the hazardous winds of scandal and cronyism, determined to bring their precious cargo of truth and common sense safely into the harbor of conservative reality. So now, I want to rev you up. I want you to be ready for these folks. You got to give them a big hand. Let's assemble our devoted crew on the main deck here with a hearty cheer and welcome. We begin. Oh, how we begin. First, right here on our stage, in captivity, securely restrained. I don't want you to be afraid in the front row. Securely restrained from getting to you by our vanguard of conservative watchdogs. Please, don't get too close to him or feed him. He is our very own wrong, but lovable liberal. Here's Brian Whitman.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Thank you.
That's enough. Save it.
Yeah, save it.
For the next. She's the admiral of advice, the brigadier of banter, the comandante of caliente conversation. That's for our south of the border folks. I wanted to make sure you got that.
I got it.
I know.
I got it.
Liberals can't take a joke sometimes.
Oh.
She is the beauty with the brain, keeping you company on your morning commute. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, the lovely Jennifer Horn. All right, you two. Take it away, man.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Hi, guys.
We're the Morning Answer. Thank you for coming to Town Hall 2019.
This is a really big room. You know, as a conservative in California, it does my heart good to see 1,700 people in this room. Give yourself a round of applause. And for Brian, he's outnumbered.
And to think 1,700 people and not one plastic straw. It really is incredible. It really is. It really is. Thank you for being here. We're going to introduce to you in a moment the folks that you are here to hear and here to see. I was watching, Fox News. Of course, it was Fox News.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. I wasn't right. President Trump, I heard some of that, and I heard, did you hear about the latest call?
The latest call.
An absolutely perfect phone call. I mean, one of those great calls. How are you? Nice to see you. And it was, I think it's Czechoslovakia.
Oh, yeah.
I think
that's my homeland, by the way. I'm Czech.
Homeland? Really? Is it your homeland?
My homeland is California. You know, my homeland's here.
Yeah. Here it is. I see. Hello, Czechoslovakia, please.
Damie Hubishku.
I'm sorry, one more time, please.
Damie Hubishku.
10 billion, right, 10 billion. I need a little favor.
Yeah?
Do you know Mika Brzezinski?
Mika.
Very bad. Very bad. Very bad.
Tomadela. Mika?
Right, very bad. Mika, not good. Very bad. Like China.
China.
Very bad. Very bad. If you could investigate whatever's going on at MSNBC, I mean, not that I'm telling you to do that, but if you would decide to do that on your own, that would be a great thing.
Yeah. Defense?
Mika. I have to go because Melania wants me to help her clean the China. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I get to work with this guy every single day, and we get President Trump in the studio. We get George W. Bush.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, I appreciate President Bush, to me, is fun. He always seemed to be searching for the word, and I always like to watch him kind of search for it. America is a beacon.
And of course, Brian's favorite president, Bill Clinton.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. How you doing, Pumpkin? Good to see you. God bless you.
All right, we want to say a special hello. One of the members of our Morning Answer family is here today. I have to confess, I have two radio husbands. I have this guy, and I have my partner for the Jen and Don show on AM870 The Answer, and he fills in when I go on vacation, when Brian's on vacation. We want to say a special hello to Don Dix.
Don Dix.
There he is.
Thank you, Don.
All right, well, let's get this party started. Who is ready for Town Hall 2019?
Yes. Okay, this is my I think I speak for Jennifer, because before anybody ever, let me speak for me. Before anybody had the stupid idea to put me on the radio, I've always been a radio listener. And I still, first and foremost, a radio listener. And one of my favorite shows to listen to, talk shows, because even though I don't often agree, I always feel welcome to listen, and that really matters. And it's an honor to introduce our first Town Hall 2019 panelist. He is a national radio host and has been for decades. He's a Los Angeles radio institution, truly. The author of the Rational Bible series. The latest is Genesis. He puts the Prager in Prager University. Dennis Prager!
Thanks. I spoke to a woman today during our Morning Answer pre-show, and she said, I came from Florida with my husband to see this next panelist. If you're a fan of our next panelist, you are not alone. He has 8.5 million weekly listeners. Our 3 to 6 p.m. host on AM870, the great one, Mark Levin.
Up next here at Town Hall 2019 is one of my favorite guys in the whole world. You see him often on Fox News. He's the host every evening from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. right here on AM870 The Answer. He has a little nickname. They call him the Sage. From South Central, Larry Elder.
Next up, he is the former advisor to President Trump. He is the author of The War for America's Soul. Our latest arrival here on AM870. We're so happy to have him. You can listen to him every day, noon to 3 p.m. America First host, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. What a panel. All right, here are the rules for today's event. Brian and I will ask a question. Each question will be asked to two of the panelists. The person that we call on first will have 2 minutes to respond, and then the second person will have 1 minute to respond. Sound good? Everybody ready?
All right. All right.
All right.
Ladies first.
How about that? All right, let's start with the Sage. Larry, this question will be for you. Nancy Pelosi has warned Democrats to treat impeachment with sobriety, yet all of us here in California know that our congressman from the Valley, Brad Sherman, filed articles of impeachment on day one in office. We've heard Maxine Waters shouting impeach 45 since day one of President Trump's presidency. She's been shouting for impeachment for a long time. Has impeachment always been the plan?
Oh, yeah. It's always been the plan. Remember when he got elected, they put pressure on the electors not to certify the election, for crying out loud. I think there were about 70 Democrats, about a quarter of the House Democratic caucus that didn't show up for his inauguration. A dozen didn't show up for his first State of the Union speech. We've had this 2.5-year investigation about collusion. I think it was Jackie Spear out here from California wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment, arguing that the president was mentally unfit to hold the office. We had the allegation that he was not paying taxes because he wouldn't turn over his tax return, something, by the way, that Nancy Pelosi has not done. We had the allegation he violated the campaign finance laws because of the payments to the mistresses. And now we have this whistleblower nonsense. So it's been that from day one, which is why most people, I think most Americans, don't care about this allegation. I was in an airport the day the acting DNI was testifying before the Intel committee, and Adam Schiff was cross-examining him. I was in a lobby, very crowded. Nobody was watching. Nobody was watching. And I'm here in California, where probably the only public figure who is more hated than Donald Trump is Charlie Manson. Nobody cared. So I don't think it's going anywhere, and I think the fact that they've been trying to get him... Oh, by the way, I left out one. Al Green wanted him impeached because he's a racist. He sent out the anti-squad tweets, remember those? Against people of color, and Al Green argued that the tweets themselves were grounds for impeachment. So when you have the impeachment process being treated that trivially, that frivolously, it's hard to take any of these things seriously. So yes, the answer is from day one, they wanted him out by any means necessary. And when he gets reelected, they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. They'll continue to try to impeach him. By the way, is it possible for Donald Trump, when he gets reelected on the final day, to resign, appoint Mike Pence, and Mike Pence can run as an incumbent? Is that possible?
All right, Mark Levin, take a crack at that for a minute.
Nancy Pelosi, of course she wanted to impeach him before he was elected. But you know what? I'd like to see her censured and expelled. That's just my opinion. And the Republicans, even though they're in the minority, they really do need to do this. You remember about 10 or 12 years ago, 60 Minutes did a show on how she and her husband were flipping stocks on IPOs. Whatever happened to that? Nothing. Elijah Cummings is under investigation because his wife has a nonprofit and a for-profit, and they're making a lot of money. What's ever happened to that? Nothing. And these are the people passing judgment on the President of the United States. I have never seen anything like this in my life. They are violating the historical practices when it comes to impeachment. As you know, there's supposed to be a vote on the floor of the House. They don't take a vote on the floor of the House. She's got her 6 little Politburo members, these chairmen of these committees, who she's handed off the dirty work to. And let me tell you something about this whistleblower. Am I jumping too far ahead?
You're good. It's okay. We could talk about
I
it.
ramble. Let me tell you about this whistleblower. He's not a whistleblower. And now they have another whistleblower who's not a whistleblower. How do you have a whistleblower when the president's already released the transcript? What are they blowing a whistle about? We know more. We know more than the first whistleblower knew, and the second whistleblower is going to tell us what we already know. This is a scam. It's the Democrats working with these intelligence officials, working with the media. And so Nancy Pelosi's always wanted to move the president of the United States, and the action is going to be in the Senate. Maybe we'll talk about that later.
All right, thank you, Mark Levin. We'll ask here Mr. Dennis Prager, and then we'll get a minute from Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Mark, you mentioned the second whistleblower and the story breaking this morning on the Sunday talk shows. Dennis, stories of a second it's an interesting phrase, a second whistleblower with firsthand knowledge of the call that was made to the Ukraine by President Trump. And I wonder, as a political note, Dennis, does this hurt President Trump's first defense, the credibility of that first defense, which was to attack the first whistleblower, in your opinion?
I thought the president's defense was that the phone call was irrelevant. That's the defense. There's nothing wrong with that phone call. I mean, that's the whole point of this whole issue. You see, as I say so often, and I feel bad because a lot of you have actually heard me say this, so I feel a little guilty. You paid good money to hear the same thing again. But hysteria is to the left what oxygen is to biological life. That is meant literally. Without hysteria, there is no left. In one of my books, I document 11 hysterias in my lifetime, all from the left. Have there been any hysterias from the right? I'm not kidding. It's not a rhetorical question. Maybe I'm overlooking one. But we go from one to another. Do you realize how good life is in the United States? I don't know if there is a parallel to a country, a society, a nation that has given so many people so much goodness, so much liberty, so much affluence, so much opportunity, and brought down by the people who have the most affluence and the most opportunity and the most liberty. I don't think there's a parallel. Not ancient Rome, nothing. There is no parallel. That's why I have a series of formulae. This is a little pompous, formulae, but formulas of life. And one of them is that secularism plus affluence equals boredom. And I think that boredom explains the whole movement to deny that there is male and female. People need meaning. Meaning is the deepest need. It is deeper than the sexual drive, the drive for meaning. Secularism deprives many people of meaning, and affluence deprives them of the rest of their meaning. Poor people all have meaning. Where's my next meal coming from? So we are living through a terrible period. People seeking meaning through nihilism. Bring down everything. That's the motto of the left. That's what this is all about.
Dr. Gorka.
Let's put the whistleblower, who's not a whistleblower, he's a hearsay blower, into the context of the last 3 years. Thanks to the great one, thanks to the incredible work of people like John Solomon, Sarah Carter, Dan Bongino, Greg Jarrett. Thanks to Sean Hannity every night going through what really happened. Let's just note what occurred 3 years ago. At the highest levels of the US government, at the level of the director of the FBI, John Brennan, at the level of the director of the FBI, James Comey, an illegal intelligence operation was launched against a presidential candidate and his campaign. There were multiple attempts to use human assets to penetrate our campaign and to engender and to gin up a fake collusion narrative, and they failed. Then the wrong man won the election. Remember, Hillary Clinton spent $1.4 billion with a B, $1.4 billion on a position she thought was owed to her because of her gender and her last name. But she failed. Then came what? Plan B. We're going to make Robert Mueller, best buddies of James Comey and Rod Rosenstein, the most powerful prosecutor in America to bring down the president. For 2 years, he tried $35 million, 40 federal agents, 500 subpoenas, 500 search warrants, 2,000 affidavits. What happened? Nothing. Utter, complete failure. This was Plan B. Plan C was the obstruction of justice charges. Again, thrown out. And this is their last attempt. This is impeachment, which they've been planning for since 12 o'clock on January 20th, 2017. And they are using what? Again, your intelligence community. A member of the CIA was assisted by an organization that supports whistleblowers that actually runs advertising trucks with big signs outside the CIA and the NSA saying, if you've got intelligence, be our whistleblower. We'll pay for your hotel fees. We'll pay for your lawyers' fees. And who funds all of this? You know who funds all of this. The same people who think Donald Trump is the problem, but they will fail.
Thank you, Dr. Gorka. Mark, let's go back to you. You have said, you just mentioned that the Senate should go nuclear to kill impeachment if it goes that far. Why? And then, Dennis, I would like you to comment on that as well.
You know, I'm probably the only person in America who's read the transcript from the Andrew Johnson impeachment. And I read it in preparation for the Bill Clinton impeachment when I was a very young man. You know, 11 charges were brought against Andrew Johnson. The Senate had their trial. 3 charges were tried. 1 he was almost convicted of. Then they adjourned, and they never brought up the other 8. And when you look at Bill Clinton was impeached because he was a felon. He was accused of being a felon by the independent counsel, Kenneth Starr, in his report, because that report under the independent counsel statute required a determination by the independent counsel. And Starr said, perjury, obstruction, suborning perjury. And in the case of Clinton, he lost his law license. He did not even contest the contempt that Judge Wright held him in Arkansas. So the Arkansas Supreme Court took his license, and he resigned from the US Supreme Court bar before they could take his license. And then you have Donald Trump. As Seb was explaining, criminal investigations, you got thousands of media types, anything they can find. The man is a multi-billionaire. If he did something wrong in business, by now we would know. Hundreds of subpoenas being issued against him and his family and his various businesses. And then we have this phony impeachment effort, which has been underway for a long time, now been handed to the Intelligence Committee, and no vote in the House of Representatives, a setup with this phony whistleblower, another conga line of whistleblowers coming behind them, like it matters. They're using this to build public opinion. They're using this to frighten Republicans who are starting to peel off, and they're the worst. And so what should the Senate do? Should the Senate give its imprimatur to what Nancy Pelosi has done and just treat this like a regular impeachment? Because one day they'll have their vote, they'll have their impeachment, because they have the numbers. And it'll go to the United States Senate, which is at least putatively under the control of the Republicans. And you can see Romney and Sass and Collins already starting to peel off, and this is always the problem with the Republicans. And my point has been this, long way around, that when you read the Constitution, it says that the House has sole power over impeachment and the Senate has sole power over trials. This is only the fourth time, it will be only the fourth time, actually only the third time it'll ever go to the Senate. Nixon resigned before it went to the Senate. And she's not following the practices of past houses. And by doing this, she's also eliminating our participation in this process because we don't know what our members are doing. And so my argument is that the Republicans in the House should change the rules, not the Constitution, they can't do that, change the rules. A prior Senate put the rules in place, they should have the nuclear option, which is basically that Mitch McConnell says that all we need is a majority vote to dismiss the complaints that come over from the House, just like a trial. Dismiss them because of the way the impeachment was handled. Ask the parliamentarian to rule. The parliamentarian will rule that you need 67 votes under existing rules. And then the nuclear option is it takes a majority vote of the Senate to override the parliamentarian. And then you have your majority vote to dismiss, assuming they could hold the Republicans together, a simple majority. That's how a bastardized impeachment system ought to be treated. It ought to be dismissed by the United States Senate.
Dennis, your response?
Another rule of life, everything the left touches, it destroys. And everything the left touches, it destroys. There's a very...
I have my own statement on that.
You do?
Everything they touch turns to, you know what.
Oh, okay. His variation is everything they touch turns to you know what. That's fair. It's an identical sentiment in a different mode. But I took a vow 35 years ago when I began radio that not only is my commitment to truth always number one, but I would never even exaggerate, because over time people take you less seriously. When I say everything the left touches, it destroys, it is not hyperbolic. It is not meant as an attack. I mean it. If I'm wrong, I do not deserve to have a public forum. In other words, I stake my reputation on the belief that everything the left touches, it destroys. And it is art, music, elementary schools, high schools, colleges, graduate schools, Christianity, Judaism, football, late night comedy. There is nothing the left doesn't touch that it does not ruin. It has ruined language. The word Nazi, which is a Jew, but you don't have to be a Jew to find the word Nazi, the most despicable possible adjective or noun. It's vile beyond words. It is meaningless. It is like Soup Nazi from Seinfeld. It has become nothing. We have a picture, thanks to Project Veritas. There is a photo of an email, a Google email, saying that Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and Prager University are Nazis. When I went to the University of Wyoming to speak, professor wrote a piece describing me in the usual 6 herbs: sexist, intolerant, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, racist, bigoted, and added anti-Semite. Because they'll use, in other words, language is a vehicle to power. It doesn't contain moral or even empirical truth. So that's now impeachment. Impeachment was an extremely serious thing in America. It is now a political tool. That's all it is. It's another screwdriver. That's all it is. Everything they touch, they ruin. This is the latest example.
Thank you, Dennis Prager. Next up, we'll go to our friend at the Morning Answer, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, who every Tuesday, by the way, Tuesdays with Seb, not Tuesdays with Maury, a little bit different. Thank you, Seb, for doing that, by the way. And then Larry Elder, if you don't mind following up on this, seeking information here, an opinion, of course, obviously. We hear a lot, not only on The Answer, but in all media, about the deep state. It's a phrase that some people hear and they don't quite know what it means or who they are. If you could provide information on that. How long have they been there? Where are they? And are they part of the latest impeachment effort that President Trump is facing?
I literally just 2 days ago emailed about this topic with Mark to share a story that I haven't really talked about much with regards to my time in the White House. So in the first couple of weeks of the administration, I refused to use the word deep state. And then I saw it for myself. Let me share with you an example of how serious this is, so you appreciate that it's not just a swamp, it's actually a seditious and at times treasonous swamp. I was given a certain mandate in the building as Deputy Assistant for Strategy, and it had to do with a certain national security remit. And to execute that mission, I wanted to bring a team of seconded professionals from parts of the intelligence community over to the White House to work for me on that task for a year or two. This is very standard, to second people from other agencies to the White House. The NSC itself, which ballooned to 420 people under Obama, 95% of the National Security Council comes from other departments, State Department, DOD, CIA. It's not White House staff. So as Deputy Assistant to the President, I put in a named request for 4 individuals from the intelligence community. And I didn't realize this at the time, but Deputy Assistant to the President is a very, very high rank. I outranked 3-star generals. There's only 40 deputies to the President in the whole of US government. And I was told by the HR department, not a problem, we'll get these people here 2 weeks tops. These are all people who I'd taught. These were my former students who are now in various agencies in the government. A month passes, nothing. I asked, what's up? I said, oh, we're just dotting some I's, crossing some T's. Another month passes, and another month passes. And eventually, 6 months later, I meet a friend from the FBI. 3 of these individuals were from the FBI, 1 was from the CIA that I was trying to bring over. And this good guy, the man who's a patriot, senior FBI special agent, said, you need to understand, Sebastian, that the 7th floor of the Hoover building, which is the headquarters of the FBI, looks at this White House, this is a direct quote, as the enemy. Despite the fact that it's not the director of the FBI who's the most senior law enforcement officer of our country, it's not even the Attorney General. The most senior law enforcement officer of the United States is the incumbent president. And we have a leadership who looked at the person chosen by 63 million Americans as their enemy. The swamp is not a theory, my friend. The swamp is real, it is broad, and it is deep. And it is absolutely astounding what Donald Trump has achieved in less than 3 years, despite the swamp.
All you have to do is read the emails between the investigators in the Mueller investigation. All you have to do is read what they've said about the president. He should lose 100 million to 1. Dennis talked about how they've trivialized the word Nazi. That's how they perceive Donald Trump. That's why they can get up in the morning, brush their teeth, comb their hair, and think that they're doing right for the country. They believe that Donald Trump is the enemy. They believe that Donald Trump is a fascist, a Nazi. And by any means necessary, we need to bring him down. They've said this in their own words. So of course there's a deep state. Of course there's a cadre of people within the government who want to bring this man down and have wanted to bring him down from day one. They believe he is the problem. How is it we pull out of the Iran treaty, a treaty that they were violating, that gives them a march towards a nuclear weapon, the treaty that did not include anything at all having to do with their missile development, nothing at all having to do with the exportation of terrorism? Donald Trump pulls out of that agreement and he's a bigger threat than Iran? This is sick. And this is what we're up against.
Absolutely. Thank you, Larry. Next question is for Dr. Gorka and for Mark Levin to follow up. The president seems to have been switching up his strategy over the last week. He is now daring Democrats to impeach him. He wants them on record. He wants subpoena power for the Republicans. Is this a smart move for the president to double down?
Me again? Okay. What the left doesn't understand about my old boss, he loves the fight. They still don't understand. He revels in this, okay? You know that the Secret Service code name regularly changes. I don't think they need to change it. He needs to be a honey badger, okay? The president is honey badger. What they are doing right now is exactly right. And Mark can give you the chapter and verse of the law and the constitutional order. But if you're not going to hold a roll call vote on impeachment, then there is no impeachment. And then I have no requirement legally to comply with this farce that is a political circus and is undermining this incredibly sacred and special tool of removal. So the president's going to fight. He's going to fight all the way. And we have to be realistic about what's going on right now. Is it good? Is it bad for the president? Here's the truth. What Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and the squad and everybody else in the left-wing media are doing is incredibly bad for our country. But it's good for the president.
Do you realize they haven't issued a single subpoena? Because when you're talking about separation of powers, you have to talk about the branches of government, not the executive branch versus a committee of Congress. This is the judicial precedent. And as you know, by doing what she's doing the way she's doing it, the Republicans have no subpoena authority. The Democrats can't really issue subpoenas that will be supported by the courts. So they're writing letters. And then if he doesn't respond to the letter and give them everything they want, then they're adding it to the list of impeachable offenses. They're saying it's obstruction. There are serious separation of powers issues that they're trying to get around. Impeachment, I hear people keep saying impeachment is simply a political process. Is that what the Constitution says? Impeachment is a political process? They spent a hell of a lot of time at the Constitutional Convention debating impeachment. Not one of them said that. It's a constitutional process. And the language in the impeachment clause has meaning. And by misdemeanor, they never meant jaywalking. It has an English common law meaning. I won't bore you with it right here. But the point is, they know it. I know it. The liars in the media know it, but they won't explain it. This is why the only body that can check the House of Representatives in this process is the United States Senate. And I have to say, I am sick and tired of watching this president fight on his own. He has no backup from the Senate. When these phony little cockroaches, they call reporters, are running around in the basement of the Capitol building with their microphones to grab a senator off the Senate subway, and they ask a question other than a handful of them, oh, the latest whistleblower, what do you think? I'm busy, I'm walking away. They should be standing there and explain, we don't need whistleblowers. We have the transcript. This is a setup by Schiff. This is a setup by the Democrats. And when it comes to the Senate, we'll treat it the way it needs to be treated. The president needs backing. That's what he needs.
Thank you, Mark. Our next question here, Town Hall 2019, goes to my friend Larry Elder. Larry, and then we'll go to Seb Gorka, Dr. Gorka, right after Larry. In the transcript that Mark referenced a moment ago, we hear President Trump naming and seeming to put a lot of confidence in the former New York City mayor, who's his private attorney, Rudy Giuliani. And Rudy Giuliani was hired, it's been widely reported, to be the face of the Trump defense when the Mueller report when Mueller was investigating the allegations. Is Rudy Giuliani, Larry, necessary? Is he doing more harm than good? There are a lot of critics on both sides of his performances. You know TV as well as anyone on the radio that I know. You're on Fox News all the time. Should he be fired? Or do we need Rudy there?
Rudy has been a passionate defender of the president since he hired him. I think he's done a fantastic job. What they don't like is the fact that Rudy has not backed down. What they don't like is the fact that Rudy has defended the president. What they don't like is the fact that Rudy has taken this whistleblower complaint for the level of seriousness that it deserves, which is virtually nothing. What the president did was talking about corruption. That's what he was talking about. And when the media consistently says that the president put pressure, quote, on Ukraine to dig up dirt, close quote, on a political opponent, read the transcript. Didn't say anything at all about dirt. Didn't say anything at all about holding up money. And Rudy Giuliani is pointing that out. And what they don't like is the fact that he is a passionate defender of the president. They keep waiting for there to be this moment when Republicans go, oh my God, I need to stop defending this guy. And they are incensed it hasn't happened yet. Even Romney, he's every now and then will say something, but even Romney has not come out and said, I'm in favor of impeachment. They keep saying over and over and over again, when are the Republicans going to wake up and realize they're backing the wrong guy? And the answer is, they're not backing the wrong guy, they're backing the right guy. I think that this race, this one coming up, it's going to be much more contentious than 2016 was, and that was contentious. That was miraculous that Donald Trump won. This time they've got plenty of money thanks to the Trump economy. They hate his guts in a way I've never seen in my life. I thought they hated Ronald Reagan. I thought they hated George W. Bush. This is on a whole nother level I've never seen. And finally, he is not going to be underestimated the way he was this last time. Hillary did not set foot in Wisconsin. She barely set foot in Michigan. That's not going to happen this time, so it's going to be even worse. And what they don't like are people like Rudy Giuliani, patriots who are backing this man up.
To understand why Rudy is Rudy and why he is the right person really goes back to what Mark said earlier. Take a moment now and ask yourself, of the several hundred people on Capitol Hill who have the letter R behind their name, how many of them have had the president's back for the last 3 years? I mean, we can do the list right now here. It's Jim Jordan, it's Matt Gaetz, it's Lindsey Graham, it's Mark Meadows, it's Devin Nunes. By the time you're into double digits, you're out of names. You've got a dozen people who are supporting this president.
and nobody else. And it is an absolute indictment of the Republican Party. I said this when I was in the White House. I've said it since, and it is empirical. Donald J. Trump became president despite the GOP, not thanks to the GOP. 2016, I don't care which God you pray to. I don't care if you pray to the purple spaghetti dragon, okay? 2016, November 8th is proof positive. As my friend Hugh Hewitt taught me the fancy word, it is dispositive proof that God exists, okay? However, what we were granted, that little window of grace, we can lose it all in 393 days. We can lose it all. It is up to us. And in the meantime, it's going to take forward-leaning fighters like Rudy to protect the president.
Thank you, Seb. You may have heard the announcement earlier, but we have a hashtag for this event, Town Hall 2019. And we asked some of you in the audience to send in questions if you had them for the panelists. And so this question will be for Dennis Prager and Larry Elder. Why are Republicans, this is from Thomas in Simi Valley, by the way. Thomas, if you're here. Why are Republicans afraid of Democrats? And I think this gets, I mean, obviously the backbone that we're talking about here that seemed to be non-existent in the Republican Party before Trump.
Okay, first of all, I am afraid of the Democrats. I fully acknowledge it.
You sure?
In fact, I'm a demophobe. I don't understand why we wouldn't fear them. They want to tear down the greatest country that was ever made. They're ingrates. They're vile. They're destructive. They're nihilistic. They're for chaos. They'll use any tactic. They'll ruin human beings' lives like Brett Kavanaugh. Why wouldn't I fear them? Of course I fear them, and we should fear them. That's the whole point. They're worthy of being afraid of. However, there's a big however. It is one thing to be afraid. It is one thing to allow the fear to paralyze you. That we cannot do. Okay, as again, I say this so regularly, no worthy trait, no good trait, kindness, integrity, honesty, they're all wonderful. They're worthless without courage. But unfortunately, among good people, I believe, another one of my rules, good people are divided into three groups. Those with courage, those who fight, those who help the fighters, and those who do nothing. Those who do nothing is the largest group. It's the Mitt Romney group. They're very large. They're worthless. Whether they mean well or don't mean well, they're worthless. So it is up to you to say, yes, they are frightening. When have people when you're battling for civilization, when has there not been fear? Courageous people are not fearless. They don't allow the fear to take them over. And by the way, my belief, it's a very big part of my Bible commentary, is fear of God is the antidote to fear of man. And I will tell you, there are certainly courageous secular conservatives. There are. Some may be sitting on this stage, and I mean that sincerely, and I love them and adore them. But the bulk of the support for this president has come from the religious community, from religious Christians, religious Catholics, religious Jews, and religious Mormons. That says something.
I don't know that I accept the premise of the question. I don't think it's that Republicans fear Democrats. It's Republicans play by the rules, and Democrats don't care about the rules. I had the privilege of interviewing Dick Cheney after he left office, and I asked him, "What's the biggest regret you have?" And he said, "Our biggest regret is when people began chanting, 'Bush lied, people died,' we thought it was idiotic. We didn't fight back." I interviewed Donald Rumsfeld, the former Secretary of Defense, after he left office. "Mr. Secretary, what's your biggest regret?" He said, "My biggest regret is when people began saying that we lied us into the Iraq war, we didn't fight back because we thought the American people would not accept that." That's how Republicans roll. They try to be polite, they try to be respectful, they don't realize the other side is completely devoid of the same kind of ethics and standards that they have, and they need to fight harder. I have never understood why the Republican Party has not grabbed this as an issue. The Democrat Party is on record opposing choice in education. Inner city parents, according to the polls, black and brown ones, want choice in education. I went to Crenshaw High School. You guys saw the movie Boys in the Hood? That's my high school. Right now, 3% of kids can do math at grade level, 3%. However, if you are within a geographical radius of that school, you are mandated to go there. The studies have shown over and over again, choice improves reading scores, math scores, dropout rates, parental satisfaction, and yet for whatever reason, the Republican Party has not grabbed that issue and said, these are the people that purport to care about, quote, people of color. People of color are telling you we want choice in education, and you're saying we don't care. We're saying we know better about how to educate your kids than you do, and for whatever reason, the Republican Party has not used this as a battering ram against the Democratic Party. That's my problem.
Thank you, Larry Elder. Next question is for my friend Mark Levin, and then Mr. Dennis Prager afterwards, if that's okay. President Trump this weekend has been tweeting. A lot of tweeting. Certainly a lot of tweeting going on. A lot of tweeting, Dennis. I mean, it's sort of some incredible tweets. I have really authored a lot of great tweets, I've got to be honest. And he's going after Mitt Romney this weekend. And conversely, it seems that Democrats, certainly politically, always kind of stick together. It appears that way. Is there a role for people who call themselves, some of whom I have known personally, never Trumpers, but they seem to be backing away from that? Is there a role for never Trumpers as we lean into 2020? Mark Levin, then Dennis Prager, please.
You know, I backed Ted Cruz in the Republican primaries. And when the primary was over, I backed Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is the most conservative president since Ronald Reagan. And you don't have to agree with everything he's done. I don't agree with everything my hero Ronald Reagan did. But I will tell you this, the never Trumpers are a disgrace. And I'll tell you why. Because they're irrational. They're acting at a personal pique. These are people, many of whom I know, although they're not that big of a group. I mean, basically, it's the 3 people on MSNBC and about 12 others. They're former McCain supporters, former Bush guys, that sort of thing. And so never Trumpers, you read guys like Bill Kristol, who absolutely has gone insane. There's not a thing Donald Trump does that they say they can support. You watch guys like Max Boot, who says, I don't recognize this party or the movement, so he flips to a leftist. Wow, is that all it took? I mean, and then there are others. And yet this president is delivering on things that other presidents said they would and never did, that some of these people support or claim to support, such as recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. such as moving our embassy to Jerusalem, such as defunding the PLO, such as recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. He has sought to secure the border. That really drives them nuts. And he's putting serious constitutional originalists on the various courts, 150 of them so far. Now, if you're still a never-Trumper in the face of this, and in the face of the enemy, not our adversaries, these are enemies, but they're trying to do this country, then you have a mental issue. You have a mental issue. I'll let Dennis explain what it is. But you have a mental issue.
Dr. Prager, please.
It's a very painful subject to me because I know all of them, all of the leaders of the intellectual side. I wrote for the Weekly Standard. I used to have Irving, that was his father. I used to have Bill Kristol on the show. Max Boot published me in the Wall Street Journal regularly. President was elected, Donald Trump was elected, and he said, Donald Trump is Stalin. This is a man whose parents escaped the Soviet Union, and they have raised a person who can compare Donald Trump to Stalin. Is there a gulag in the United States that I'm unaware of? Has he been shut down, Max Boot? He probably gets higher lecture fees now than he ever did in his life. He should thank God for the president. It's a phenomenon. You asked me, obviously sarcastically to define the mental state. But I mean, George Will, I love George Will. It's painful. It is just painful. He left the Republican Party because of Donald Trump. So or Brett Stephens. Brett Stephens is a courageous voice on so many matters, but this on the issue of Donald Trump. I mean, I debated him on the New York Times Facebook page. He wrote a column against me. It was a respectful column. I wrote one against him respectfully, but it's a phenomenon. It can only be people seem to value style more than morality. I mean, I don't know what Mark just recited as among the things he did. He is the greatest conservative president since Ronald Reagan. I mean, there's no close second, and in some ways he surpassed Ronald Reagan. And we have a very similar autobiography. He was my last choice among Republican nominees. By the way, it's Yom Kippur this week, and I will be doing atonement. I just want you to know. On the Day of Atonement, Jews banged their chest over sins that have been committed. I will add, and I didn't support Trump in the primaries. And I was against Trump during the primaries. I spoke against Trump in the primaries. Forgive me, O Lord, a Lord of compassion and kindness. However, to my credit, I did say in my first anti-Trump piece, if he's nominated, I will support him. And that is the difference between me and a never-Trumper. I understood there's an enemy, and I hate to use the word enemy about a fellow American. It brings me no joy. The Democratic Party is now leftist. It was liberal when I grew up. It is now a left-wing party, and the left is the enemy of the good.
Thank you. The next question I had for you has actually been echoed by Will from Pittsburgh following the hashtag Townhall 2019, and it's from Mark Levin with a follow-up from Sebastian Gorka. What will come from the investigation nation with John Durham and, of course, the Inspector General Michael Horowitz and his report that's coming out? I know both of you have been following this so closely on your radio shows. What will we learn after all of these things are complete?
I'm a little hard of hearing. I think I heard the question.
What'll come from John Durham and the
By the
IG
way, you're
report?
not hard of hearing. This is a dilemma in every venue where the people sitting up here
Can't
don't
hear.
hear anything. Right. It is a speaker's problem. So it's not, you're not hard of hearing.
The question about Stormy Daniels?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I
I
have
told
10
you,
of those.
he hears like a man. He has a male ear.
All right.
The likelihood of Stormy Daniels being nominated by the Republicans in 2020 is the question.
On a scale of
Mark.
1 to 10. Actually, my question is,
10
where's
being
Hunter Biden?
Short
certainty and 1 being not possible at all. Yeah, go ahead, please, Mark.
All right. So what will come out of these investigations?
Yeah, what are we
Okay.
going to expect in the next few
Well,
months?
first of all, you can see how hyper-concerned the left is in the media, the endless trashing of Bill Barr, who I happen to know personally, and this is his second term as Attorney General. And this man is unmovable. He is unmovable. They can hold him in contempt 1,000 times and it won't matter, because you wear that as a badge of honor, don't you? They treat contempt like they do everything else in an unserious fashion. I think they very much want to get to the bottom of what took place, which Mr. Mueller clearly did not, which no committee in Congress, Republican or Democrat, has dug into in any serious way. No committee. And of course, which most of the press not only didn't dig into, but participated in. You know, those leaks we talk about? Well, where do you think they went to? And of course, this attack on Barr and this attack on the so-called conspiracy theorists trying to figure out what took place. I think they're going to find out a hell of a lot of what took place. I think my understanding of this U.S. attorney from Connecticut is he's very solid, but I wouldn't put all my hopes in an investigation. If we can get 80% of what took place, that's a big deal. And I would like to comment on the Republicans quickly, whether it's fear or they follow the rules. I think it's both, but I also think for the most part, they're not terribly conservative. I really don't, because they are ballooning up the budget. These votes coming out of the Senate to try and kneecap the president when he's moving funds around, which every other president has done to secure the border. But in the case of Trump, it's an issue. They're not providing him with the kind of support he needs, other than with judges, as best as I can tell. They're not doing a hell of a lot of conservative things. The president is doing conservative things, and mostly on his own. It was not a conservative thing, or even a Republican thing, when the Republicans rewrote the legislation making the Iran-Contra deal a non-treaty deal that could easily pass in the United States Senate. It was not a conservative or Republican thing when they agreed to cut defense spending as much as they would cut food stamps under sequestration. It's not a conservative thing when you come up with the Gang of Eight led by Republicans, which would have even increased immigration, legal and illegal, more than they have already. And it's not a conservative thing when the Congress, including the Senate, sends the president a budget bill and tells him, sign it, or the Defense Department won't have money, when it is the most massive spending bill in American history. So I'm not one of those that say, I think it is fear. I think it is that they follow the rules, but they've lost their way. That's the biggest problem as far as I'm concerned.
Before I respond to my expectations of the Barr investigation, I too want to talk about whether it's fear or not. In the White House, I saw something else. Yes, maybe it was fear, maybe it was playing by the rules, but the biggest problem I had with my colleagues is, as conservatives, they wanted to be loved by the left. This is the biggest problem. I had a policy when I was in the White House. I refused to talk to the Washington Post, to CNN, to New York Times, on the record or off the record. Why would I assist somebody who wants to destroy my boss and me? Why would I do that? Why would I do that? I had one journalist write 42 hit pieces on me.
Why would I help them? But I saw my colleagues wanting to be friends with them, wanting to go to the cocktail parties. That's why they're not conservatives, because you can't be a conservative and be friends with a Billy-o Jim Acosta. So, I don't do predictions. Predictions are a mug's game, but I'll tell you something. There are some interesting metrics. On Monday, I flew to Rome with Secretary Pompeo, and I took an innocent selfie getting up the steps into the secretary's plane, posted it on the internet, didn't have Wi-Fi for 10 hours, landed in Italy, checked the internet, and my friend said, "You know you're trending on Twitter?" The left for 10 hours went insane. What's Gorka doing with Pompeo? Attorney General Barr was in Rome 2 days ago. What's going on? That tells you they are afraid, and they should be. Let me ask the historian, let me ask the constitutional historian, because I need to know for myself. In the history of the Republic, since we've had Attorney Generals, Mark,
Wear a neck brace.
how many times has an Attorney General traveled to other countries to spearhead an investigation into a counterintelligence operation? Roughly how many times?
None that I'm aware of.
Bingo. So this man is serious. He has nothing to prove. He has a spine of rebar, and I expect two things. I expect felony charges against the operatives, the McCabe's and so forth, who clearly committed crimes and lied to their own agencies. But what's more important, and here I'm not sure if there'll be charges, what AG Barr will get to the bottom of, and that's why he's in the UK, in Rome, talking to his Australian counterparts, he's going to find out where it all began. Because what really happened is quite apparent, is that the director of the CIA, John Brennan, did an end run around the US Constitution and our statutes that protect us from being spied upon by our own government, and used the British intelligence services and the Australian and intelligence liaison services to illegally spy on US persons. And AG Barr will get to the bottom of that.
Thank you, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. America First, every day at noon on AM 870. Okay, let's talk a little bit about an important issue. It's a national issue, but for everybody here at Town Hall 2019, of course, in Southern California, the issue of immigration is a very important issue and a very consistent political issue. Dennis Prager and then Mark Levin. Start with Dennis. President Trump signed a proclamation that does a lot of things. Among them, denies visas to those who are immigrants who can't afford health care. The criticism that has come after that, predictable, obviously, criticism, but is there something to it, that it is a mean-spirited proclamation? Is there something President Trump can do, Dennis, with rhetoric and with policy to avoid that perception?
Probably nothing. It's sort of like, and I don't mean to be callous here, and I'll explain what I mean by callous in a moment. If somebody who did not understand the purpose of surgery saw a person with a knife cutting up a fully breathing, living human being, they would regard it as an act of evil. So you have to understand when something is meant to do good, but there is pain involved. I don't know how to solve the immigration problem without pain. I would love to minimize the pain. Let me state what I have said my whole broadcast career. If I were living in Central America, I would do anything possible to get into the United States legally or illegally. I have 100% empathy and sympathy for anyone who wants to sneak into the freest, most wonderful country that is near to them. Why would they not? There isn't any one of you who would not. You are mired in permanent poverty and corruption in Guatemala. You can walk to the United States of America, which is not corrupt yet, which is free which will give you a massive opportunity, which will let you be just another person there. Nobody cares if you're Hispanic or Black or Jew or Christian or atheist. No one cares here. They're not used to that. And you wouldn't come? So I have utter sympathy for these people. The moment you say you can't come, you are mean. So there is no possible way that the press will not depict anything done to stop illegal immigration as mean-spirited. There is nothing he can do. The moment you say we are not having open borders, you are going to be depicted as mean. They are mean because if we have open borders, that is the end of the United States as we know it. Every country on earth has to have borders or it doesn't exist. They are mean. They are not protecting that which the world would like to move to. And it's our moral compass is broken. North is south and east is west. To protect the borders of the United States of America is to protect the American experiment, because people bring in different values. 1 million people from the Muslim Middle East into Europe bring in Muslim Middle Eastern values. This has nothing to do with race. There's no Muslim race. But they bring, for example, Jew hatred. The vast majority of them, like Rashida Tlaib, they bring Jew hatred with them into the countries they come. Just like, to prove it's not racist, New Yorkers bring foreign values to Florida. That's why Florida is now a purple state, because of New Yorkers. Am I anti-New Yorker? Well, actually, I am. I should not have asked myself that question. Okay, but having said that, it's not a racial factor. I mean, I come from New York. We want to protect the greatest experiment humans have ever engaged in making a good society. That's all borders are about. And in protecting them, you can't do it with pure kindness. It is not possible. That's the answer to the question.
Well, I agree with that, but I am a little perplexed by the left who makes this allegation. Why would so many minorities try to come into a country that has systemic racism? It just confounds me. Systemic racism, white nationalism, and yet we can't keep people out of the country. That's number one. Number two, you're supposed to want to come to the country because you want freedom. That's why many of our ancestors came to the country before there was a massive welfare state. Pointing out or carrying on what Dennis just said here, the welfare state is not compassionate. It's a police state of sorts. Decides to redistribute wealth. It never has enough money. It chews at the center of compassion. It chews at the center of morality. It destroys the society. So there's actually less rather than more opportunity. I am concerned, as Dennis is, when people are escaping one culture and come into our country, we don't do a very good job anymore of assimilation. In fact, when you listen to the Democrats, when you watch the media, when you go through school, you're really not supposed to assimilate. You're supposed to hold on to the culture that you escaped. If that culture is so great, why did you leave it? I'm not saying you should ignore your ancestry, but you come here to become an American. And then the final point is, people shouldn't come here. What was who don't have health care?
Correct. That's the question, yeah.
Well, the obvious reason for that is a nation has limited resources. Look, if we opened our borders up, we'd have 5 billion people on the border, and they'd all want health care, and they'd all want jobs, and they all want to go to college, and so forth and so on. Stennis says we cease to be a nation. We are a nation state, and the purpose of immigration is to improve this country. The purpose of immigration is for the citizenry here today to decide on their future, not foreigners. They don't get to decide. And by the way, we have all kinds of rules when it comes to immigration. 45% of the people here come through our visa system. Anybody ever look at a visa application? They're pretty damn complicated. Why are you coming here? What are you contributing? What are you doing? How are you going to help our society? You're here to teach. You're here for entertainment. You're here to provide this. You're here to provide that. So if we say, if you don't have health care, you can't come, all of a sudden, that's a negative? It's not a negative. If you want liberty, you can come here, get in line. It's not like people can't get in here. We have 1 million legal immigrants, which is bigger than the vast majority of the rest of the world, every single year. Follow our rules and get in line.
Thank you, Mark. Switch gears a little bit to 2020, and the next question is for Sebastian Gorka and for Larry Elder. We have heard nonstop from the 2020 Democrats about voluntary buybacks. We heard that from Joe Biden. We heard about mandatory buybacks from Beto O'Rourke. We can't stop hearing about that. And what this leads to, obviously, is confiscation, right? We talk about that. Is the Second Amendment going to be at the center of the 2020 race? Once we put aside all of the investigations and impeachment, do Americans realize that we're headed in this direction?
A few years ago, people like myself, Sean Hannity, when we said they're coming after your guns, we were labeled the conspiracy theorists who were told to take off our tinfoil hats. Now they're not hiding it. They're actually saying it. And what needs to be stated again and again and again is, number one, you can't buy something back I didn't buy from you. And number two, it's the Second Amendment isn't about whitetails and dove hunting. The Second Amendment, as the child of parents who suffered as children under Nazi occupation, whose father was arrested and tortured by the communists and then imprisoned, I was taught to shoot as soon as I could safely pick up a gun. A gun, the Second Amendment. Let me put it like this. If you look at the streets of Hong Kong today, there is a reason that the young protesters are waving two flags. They're waving the British Union Jack, and they're waving our flag. And the Chinese protesters against the deadliest communist regime in America today, they're actually, look at the pictures on the internet, they're holding up signs in perfect English that say, "We wish we had a Second Amendment." Whether it's Lenin, whether it's Stalin, whether it's Hitler, they all knew that a disarmed population are not citizens, they are subjects. Maduro's Venezuela is the way it is today because 7 years ago, they disarmed the population. This is not a coincidence. I don't think this will be the central issue of 2020. I think it will be one of the key issues in mobilizing, because 2020 is going to be about one thing. Is everybody in this room going to get 5 people with them to the polling station? It's about mobilization. The real key issue of 2020, it's not going to be the absolute inherent evil of the abortion industry now, and that they want to be able to kill children after they're born. It's not the fact that they want to take away your freedom of speech on social media and everywhere else. It boils down to one thing only. And here I'm paraphrasing the president's son. We were in Orlando for the launch of the president's re-election campaign a few weeks ago. And Don Jr. said, you know, it boils down to one thing next year. The election will be simply about choosing socialism or liberty, period. That is our choice.
I think that Beto O'Rourke has done us a public service. He's honest. He's revealed the end game. I want to take away your firearms. There was an op-ed in the LA Times in December 1993. I urge you to look at it. They essentially argued that Americans were too irresponsible to have guns, and the Second Amendment needs to be repealed. The founder of what became the Handgun Control, Inc., the Brady Campaign Center for Gun Control, is a guy named Nelson Shields. Gave an interview in New Yorker magazine in 1976. He outlined exactly the end game. He said, our ultimate goal is the complete and total confiscation of all guns in America. However, we have to do it piecemeal, issue by issue by issue. This is what they believe. The purpose of the Second Amendment, as Sebastian pointed out, is to prevent tyranny against government. Isn't it ironic that the very people who refer to Donald Trump as a fascist and as a Hitler and as a Stalin want to curtail the Second Amendment, which is designed to prevent a fascist, a Hitler, a Stalin? One more quick point, and this is even true of Fox News. When you hear this debate, every time there's a shooting, we need to have common sense gun control laws, we need to have universal background checks, we need to have gun registration, we need to have an assault weapons ban. Nobody ever asks how many Americans are alive every year because someone was able to get a firearm and defend him or her. According to one criminologist in Florida, Gary Kleck, every single year, 1.25 million Americans use a firearm for self-defense. Out of that number, 40% believe, but for the firearm, they would have been dead. You balance that against the number of people that are killed through the criminal use of guns, it's not even close. When are we going to talk about how many people are here because of a firearm? I never hear that discussion, ever, even on Fox.
Thank you, Larry Elder. Next question is for Mark Levin, and then we'll go back to Larry for an answer here. Jennifer brought up the 2020 elections, and to sort of elaborate on the 2020 elections, of course, it's been a year since Justice Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed to the Supreme Court. It seems many pundits, many who are watching the elections of 2020 and also watching what's happening on the court and covering the controversy that surrounded his hearings, believe that he might have a big impact on Senate elections in 2020, that is Kavanaugh. How will this confirmation, Mark, affect the results of Senate races next year, if you see that happening? And is it possible the balance of power shifts?
I don't think it's going to have much effect on the Senate elections. I think the presidential election will have a bigger effect on the Senate elections. And I think the issue is going to come down to what Don Jr. says, but also up or down on Trump. And the issue will also come down to who the Democrats nominate. And honestly, if you try and put yourself in their shoes and you look at their, forget about being conservative Republican, and you look at their candidates, this is like the worst field ever. I mean, truly the kooks of the kooks. If you look at their proposals, I mean, there's 2 or 3 that they've raised that Donald Trump will be able to really hammer them on. Eliminating private health care for everybody. A lot of union guys aren't going to like that either, as a matter of fact. A lot of senior citizens aren't going to like the fact that they're proposing eliminating Medicare, even though they pretend otherwise. A wealth tax. Has anybody asked Elizabeth Warren where that's constitutional? There is no constitutional basis for a wealth tax. You can't tax somebody's wealth, but just think about how nuts that is. You've already paid taxes on something, and you're going to continue to pay 2%, or Bernie Sanders says 5 or 10%, every year thereafter, over and over again. Well, people who own businesses, they're not going to own those businesses. They're going to lose those businesses. Even the New York Slimes has a problem with this, and they're right. So I think that, and I'll tell you something else, maybe we be introduced later. but I'm kind of waiting and I'm not sure, so I'll introduce it myself. And that is the media in this country. I think they are going to attempt and have attempted to have the biggest role in the election possible, whether it's 2016, 2018, and 2020. And this is a big, big problem, because if you look at the media, somebody mentioned handgun control link, you did. A former spokesman for handgun control link was Jake Tapper. You look at the people who are reporting to you, it's unbelievable. You got Fredo Cuomo, we know about his family. You look over at MSNBC, every one of them has a political pedigree of one sort or another. Chris Matthews worked for O'Neill and worked for Cardi, and go right down the line. These people present themselves as news people. Hannity, Ingram, Tucker, they don't present themselves as news people, which is why they're under attack all the time. The problem we have is the distinction between news and opinion doesn't exist anymore. Moreover, the vast majority of people in the media today are progressives or Democrats or related to progressives or Democrats. So this is a big, big problem we're having. We don't have a free press in the sense that we have diversity in newsrooms, the seeking of objective truth, and that sort of thing. We have a very unfree press right now. And I actually believe down the road it's going to get better with technology and new platforms and the internet and the competition that is going to be created. So 2020, they have the media working for them. I don't think the Kavanaugh thing is going to be as big an issue because it's going to be somewhat distant. Maybe the Supreme Court, if somebody passes away or resigns, that'll be a big issue. Otherwise, I doubt it. Told you I ramble.
In 2016, Donald Trump, as the nominee, had the highest disapproval ratings of any candidate I've ever seen, except for Hillary Clinton. Can we get that lucky again in 2020 and have Donald Trump run against somebody like Elizabeth Warren? Can we get that lucky? Not only is she talking about a wealth tax and reparations and the Green New Deal and free college tuition and debt forgiveness and decriminalization of illegal entry, Medicare for all. Could we possibly get that lucky and have this be the candidate? And Mark is right. Once Joe Biden is gone and he's dead man walking, who do they have? Bernie Sanders just had a heart attack. By the way, what's the over-under on when Adam Schiff argues that President Trump should be impeached for giving Bernie Sanders a heart attack? Can we get that lucky? The Democrat candidates with common sense have 1%. Tulsi Gabbard opposes third trimester abortions. She opposes Medicare for all. She opposes the idea of illegal entry being decriminalized. She has 1% in the polls. Can we get that lucky again? The idea that somebody like Bernie Sanders is a front runner is staggering. How many of us would have believed that a self-declared socialist could be, in some instances, leading the Democratic primaries? This is amazing. Can we get that lucky?
Thank you, Larry. I promise, Mark, this was actually my next question for you, and you called for it. Has anybody picked up Mark's book on freedom of the press? Fantastic book. The question is for Mark and for Dennis. What is the biggest, most important news story from the last 6 months that should have been reported by the mainstream media but was ignored?
It's not the one story. It is the constant story about the economy and how the economy is ignored. They'll hit it and then they pretty much ignore it. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest story that they ignore. But it's not even that. It is the daily projection of the progressive agenda, their reality, into the homes of Americans. And it is also the twisting of headlines. Dennis talked about language. He's so right. The use of language. It is the creation of pseudo events like this whole whistleblower thing. The transcript's out there. Why are we talking about whistleblowers? How are you a whistleblower about a public document? What is this guy going to say? What are they blowing whistles about? The President of the United States already neutralized them. Now we're having lines and conga line of whistleblowers, and they're just coming out of the woods to tell us about this sort of thing. And it's not just pseudo events. You know, the director of the Library of Congress, he was also, years ago, Daniel Bornstein. He was also a University of Chicago historian. And he wrote a book about pseudo events. And he said, you have these pseudo events which give birth to more and more pseudo events, like Russia collusion. Well, let's connect the dots. Connect the dots to what? More pseudo events. You have the president releasing the transcript. Oh, we have whistleblowers. About what? More pseudo events. And then you have the propagandists. And I wrote about this too. Propaganda. That is the use of words, and it's creating devils and angels. We're the devils, they're the angels. Illegal immigrants are the angels, the American citizen is the devil. And this stuff is pushed constantly. What was your question again?
I liked your answer better. Dennis, you want to take a crack at it? What is the mainstream media leaving out?
I'm done.
I read the New York Times. It is not only painful, but you should thank me. I deserve thanks from you. I do it for your sake. I am professionally obligated to read the Washington Post, the New York Times, and listen to CNN and so on. And I do. And it is a different world than the world that you know and I know. We know their world, but they don't know our world. How many Americans know how many race hoaxes there have been in this country in the last 10 years? I would venture to say that the vast majority of instances of a swastika on a black kid's dorm room, a noose hanging on a college campus, or an epithet screamed out in a store have turned out to be a hoax. Pure Smollett, Jussie Smollett type hoax. They happen all the time. There is no doubt in my mind that except for Jussie Smollett, not one of your liberal friends or relatives knows about any of them. Any of them. There is so little racism in this country that they have to make up hoaxes. Did any Jew in Germany in the 30s make up an anti-Semitic hoax? Gee, why not? They didn't have to. That's why. A Jew who made up an anti-Semitic hoax would have been considered a nutcase. You didn't have to make it up because that was the reality. The biggest lie that I've written this, I taught Jewish history at Brooklyn College. I've written a book on anti-Semitism. The biggest lie since the medieval blood libel against the Jews, that they slaughtered Christian children to use their blood to bake matzah for Passover. The biggest libel since then is that America is a racist country. That is how big a libel I consider it to be. The media, I want to tell you something. This is a very painful subject to me, the media. I was at the Russian Institute of Columbia. I studied communism my whole life. I studied leftism and communism. I learned Russian just to read Pravda, not to be able to order a sandwich in Moscow. In fact, it's a joke because I can actually say in perfect Russian, the Soviet government condemns the Israeli aggressors against the attack on the peace-loving people of the Arab world. But I cannot say, I would like a tuna sandwich. So I learned Pravda Russian. And I was in the Soviet Union in the heyday of the Cold War. And I believed until, I'd say 20 years ago, that only in a police state can the media brainwash a population. And I was wrong. We live in a free country. And between the media and academia, now down to elementary school, a civilization is brainwashed. This is a very serious issue.
Thank you, Dennis. In fact, we're going to stay with Dennis Prager here and then our friend Sebastian Gorka, if you would. Folks ought to know, we ought to congratulate Mr. Prager. Dennis has a new movie coming out, so congratulations, Dennis. Dennis will be the new James Bond, and a lot of people don't, but it's very exciting. The movie
But
is
is he
called,
wearing a skirt?
the movie is called No Safe Spaces, right? And the rating that your movie receives is PG-13. I thought, oh, Dennis. Several PragerU videos, of course, have been censored. Folks may have seen this very big story about, maybe a couple of months ago now, and continues to be a big story, the censoring done by Google and YouTube. You went to Washington, D.C., of course, to talk about this issue. What is, Dennis, at the center of the censoring of the PragerU videos, and what is their fear over the content you're distributing or providing?
I'll answer part 2 second, so I'll answer part 1 first. The movie No Safe Spaces is coming out. It's opening in Phoenix on October 24th, 25th, and through the weekend. And the people who made the Dinesh D'Souza movies are the people who have made this movie. Adam Carolla and I, quote unquote, star in it. I want to tell you, and I am very open about my life, and I'm not humble and I'm not a braggart. I'm realistic. It is a great movie, and it is not great because I'm in it. I am in a great movie, but not because of me. I have seen it 4 times, and I have not lost interest, and I don't have a very long attention span. You must see it, and you must bring, by the way, it's filled with liberals. Alan Dershowitz and Van Jones and a whole host of people. So I just want you to know that. It will open your eyes to the threat to liberty in the United States, and especially on campuses. No Safe Spaces. Please attend. As regards Prager University, we're the biggest conservative video site in the world. We have 1 billion views a year, and I'm very proud of that, obviously. Thank you very much. But this will really give you some hope, and I'm not a built-in optimist. The 60%, 65% of those who watch PragerU videos are under 35 years of age. That's very important. In fact, I met a young guy, about a 30-year-old guy at Denver Airport last year, and he goes, oh, wow, I watch your videos on PragerU. He was waxing enthusiastic, and just as we're about to board the plane, he says, I'm just curious, do you work for PragerU? He couldn't have said anything that made me feel better. I was so delighted with that reaction. Anyway, to Ted Cruz's great credit, he is leading this battle on what they're doing. In a nutshell, hundreds of our videos have been placed by YouTube, which is owned by Google, on the restricted list, meaning that if you have any filter against pornography and violence, you cannot see a PragerU video. 4 of our videos have been given by Pulitzer Prize winners. 3 prime ministers have given videos. Professors from Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, et cetera, Oxford have given videos. And yet we're lumped with pornography and violence. But this is the best. I'll end with this. At the hearing in the US Senate, you could see it. It's actually on YouTube. You can see it. So I was testifying. Senator Cruz looks at one of the heads of Google, says, sir, I'm just curious, why did you place Mr. Prager's video on the 10 Commandments on the restricted list? And God, you have no idea. I was dying to hear the answer, because that's what we've been asking. Why do you place these videos? And the guy said, because it mentions murder. You wouldn't want your kid to hear, "Thou shalt not murder," would you? That's restricted. So when I got my chance to speak, you can see this, I said, I just want the representative from Google to know PragerU will now reissue the 9 commandments.
Only Dennis Prager could reissue the commandments. So why is this happening? In this country, in 1969, the left wanted to effect a Marxist revolution. Many people forget this. There was something called the Days of Rage in Chicago. A group of radicals took over the Students for a Democratic Society, and then they became a terrorist organization called the Weathermen Underground. That organization, made up of white, rich kids, detonated explosive devices at the Pentagon and the State Department. We kind of forget this, right? You know, terrorism is Al-Qaeda and ISIS. No, white, privileged kids blowing up bombs in Washington, D.C. But what happened? What happened to that revolution? This is the land of 72-ounce steaks and V8 Hemis. There was not going to be a communist revolution. So they failed. Did Bernardine Dawn and Bill Ayers become farmers? Did they run back to their rich daddies? Did they become poets? No, they'd read their Trotsky, they'd read their Lenin. They even knew what Hitler said. Give me their children and I will own their future. In my new book, comes out on Monday, The War for America's Soul, I dedicate a whole chapter to mapping who these people were, who they are, and what they did to our country. These people didn't retire, they didn't disappear. Bernardine Dawn and Bill Ayers became tenured professors in Chicago, and we let them. You want to know now why, according to the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, 52% of American millennials wish to live in a socialist or communist America? You want to know the answer to how that happened? It's a really tough answer. Look in the mirror. We let them. We seeded the culture. We seeded education, the media, Hollywood, and now the internet. The internet is controlled by some of the most liberal billionaires in the world today. That's why they're trying to throttle Dennis Prager. They want to control it all. And on a personal note, you are here because you're fighters, you believe in this republic, but please, if you can support 2 organizations in America today, support Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, that is fighting on the campuses against political correctness. That Friday took 400 young black conservatives to the White House to meet the president. Think about that. And the other organization that is, as far as I'm concerned, the most important cultural vehicle in America today to take back our republic is Prager University.
Thank you, Dr. Gorka. The next question is for Larry Elder and a response from you, Seb, as well. Not sure if all of you saw this. We kind of forget in California because we are so far left. We're surrounded by progressives, but there's a whole middle of the country that is not quite as left-leaning as the coasts. And this week it was unbelievable. There was a town hall with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah. And in it, woman stands up and said that to fix climate change, we should start eating babies. Now, there is a lot of reporting that says that this is a plant, that it was a setup.
I'm against eating babies.
Yeah. You're on a diet,
On the
right?
record right now.
regardless of whether this was a plant or not, if you watched the reaction of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she was stone-faced. She didn't correct the woman. She didn't look appalled. She did nothing. So the question is, will the very far left that is talking about after-birth abortions and climate change at all costs, including eating babies, cause a split in the Democratic Party because they are so disconnected to the middle of the country, Larry?
No, it won't cause a split in the Democratic Party. They're all on board with this issue of climate change alarmism. But you talk about the middle of the country. On election night, Van Jones attributed Trump's victory to whitelash. No evidence whatsoever of that. Turns out that Donald Trump got a smaller percentage of the white vote than did Mitt Romney 4 years earlier. By the way, Obama got a higher percentage of the white vote than John Kerry did 4 years earlier. There are 700 counties in this country that voted for Obama 2008, 2012. 200 of them switched to Donald Trump in 2016. When were they bitten by the racist radioactive spider? The city that is over 100,000 that voted the most for Donald Trump is Abilene, Texas. 80% of that city voted for Trump. In the 2010 census, the city was 75% white, 10% black. The city is about 136 years old. They just elected their first black mayor. How does a city that is racist because they voted 80% for Trump then turn around and overwhelmingly vote for a black mayor? How does that happen? And the answer is it's a lie. The idea that America is a racist country is one of the major memes of the Democratic Party. It's one of the major memes of the media. They push it, they push it, they push it to the point where they're trying to convince people that it's true. It's been studied. There's a group of academicians from University of Pennsylvania. They've been following a group of 500 whites for a number of years, asking them all sorts of questions. And the researchers just did a paper and they admitted that we assume because of Donald Trump, the white people that we've been following would be far more likely to express negative views about blacks and about Hispanics. The opposite happened. They were less likely to. They were stunned by this finding. It is a lie that's perpetuated over and over and over again because they have to get that 95% monolithic black vote without which they cannot win at the presidential level. So they continue to tell black people that you're a victim, you're being persecuted by these racists over here, and by the way, we are on the white horse, we're wearing the white hat, we've got your back. It is a lie. Most of the country, how does Obama get elected and then get reelected? Obama said that racism is in America's DNA. In the 1950s, white Americans were asked, would you vote for a black president if he or she was qualified? The numbers who said yes were in the single digits. As I said, fast forward, Obama gets a higher percentage of the white vote than does John Kerry. It is a lie, and it's a lie that's been perpetuated by the Democratic Party and the media for votes and for power.
I find it mildly amusing when in discussion about issues of race, that it's me, the legal immigrant with the funny accent, who has to remind liberals, you do know the KKK was a Democrat organization. You do know that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. And you do know that the NRA, one of the oldest civil rights organizations in America, was founded in part to help freed slaves be able to protect themselves from the KKK. Larry's absolutely right. But we have to go even deeper. It is a sad, it's a tragic fact today that we have racism in this country. But the institutional home of racism today is the Democrat Party. This is a party where the face, the new face, they call themselves the Squad. I call them the 4 horsewomen of the Democrat apocalypse. They have stated on the record, if you have a brown face, you better have a brown voice. If you have black skin, you better have a black voice. You better toe the line.
A more racist statement is not possible. This is the party in which members of the squad, AOC included, are proud supporters of the boycott, divestment, sanction movement that is the new face of anti-Semitism and which is predicated on the idea that Israel is legitimate and has no right to exist. This is the squad in which one of its members, on her first day in office, went to the world map in her congressional suite and took a post-it note and stuck it over Israel and wrote Palestine on it. This is the same squad that has a member who said Israel is evil and has, quote unquote, hypnotized the West. Today, a man like John F. Kennedy would not be allowed into the Democrat Party. A pro-life Democrat, strong on national security, who loves this country, would be excoriated. And it's funny on the one hand, but it is also so telling. In that viral video where either a plant or a deranged woman says, "We have 12 years to live and we better eat the babies." To this day, AOC has not rejected that statement. What does that tell you? She didn't reject it then, she doesn't reject it now. The Democrat Party has become a radical extremist party, and it is defined by racism.
Thank you. We're going to switch it up a little bit. Our next two questions will be answered by all the panelists, but just to keep an eye on the clock, we'd like to keep each answer to about 30 seconds if possible. First question involves California. And as many of you know, as residents, California has a lot of problems. We have the homeless crisis. We have the water problem. We can only shower on Saturdays. Crime is on the rise. Schools are failing. We have Adam Schiff living here some days. So how do we begin to fix the problems that are just impacting California every single day when Republicans haven't been able to win statewide office in over a decade? What is your advice, starting with you, Dennis, and we'll just move down the line, for California Republicans who oftentimes feel outnumbered?
Just out of, is this our last round? I just want to know because I want to make a final comment.
Go ahead, make a comment. This is not, we're not done yet. No, we still have plenty of time.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. It's largely hopeless. It's just a fact, okay? But on the other hand, while I don't see some overnight turnaround, I just want to remind you of something. First, look around here. There's a lot of people in this room, and you're not alone. You know, there's an irony. You know that there are more Republicans in California than in any other state. I mean, we're dwarfed by Democrats, but please know that just as a statistic. We're not alone. I don't feel alone. People ask me, how do I live here? I don't know how you live as a conservative in Manhattan, but I understand how we live here. We have terrific things. By the way, there's a renaissance here. Prager University is located here. The Daily Wire is located here. Ben Shapiro is here. Pajamas Media is here. This is a real renaissance in Southern California. Northern California is lost. So don't give up. But the generic answer is this. And this is comes from my heart and my mind. The great problem is Americans forgot how to teach what it means to be an American. Christians forgot what it means to be a Christian, and Jews forgot what it means to be a Jew. That's the problem in a nutshell.
Mark?
30 seconds to fix California, I'll tell you.
If anyone
You can do it if anybody can.
Well, you know what? Maybe 30 years, maybe 50 years. Sometimes things have to get very bad before they get better. And unfortunately, that's the state of affairs here. You have a one-party state that has taken steps to make sure it will always remain a one-party state. The way it's changed its voting laws, the way it opens its borders, decisions it makes. It's got an administrative state here that is massively powerful. But hopefully someday something will happen that will shake things loose. But otherwise, there's, again, not to upset you, but people are leaving. I can understand why some people don't. I mean, you're from here, you live here, you have homes here, and you're not ready to give up. I wouldn't give up either. But there's no panacea here. There just isn't. So go get a drink or something.
Larry?
Well, I have a two-step program to save California. Keep the illegal aliens, deport the Democrats. On a serious note, Jen, it's going to take an issue. It's going to take an issue to cause people to rethink. I remember some years ago, we had a movement to get rid of bilingual education. That movement was led by parents living in the inner city who realized that their kids were not transitioning out of Spanish into English. And it passed overwhelmingly in California. The issue that I think may very well ignite this is homelessness. Democrats don't like it. Republicans don't like it. Independents don't like it. They may not understand what to do about it, but they know something is terribly wrong, and that California has 50% of the nation's homeless people living here. And I think once you start recognizing this is not only a civil rights problem, not only a problem of inconvenience, it's a problem of hygiene, maybe, just maybe at that point, somebody come along, make an argument that the left-wing policies have, because of our generosity, the weather, nothing you can do about that, but because of our generosity, people are coming here, and they're staying here, and they're taking advantage of our taxes. This is a state that's got an unfunded pension liability of over $1 trillion. Some people have it even higher, and we can't keep going. So maybe at some point, that issue might ignite a rethinking of their allegiance to the Democratic Party. But Dennis is right, it's largely hopeless. Republicans are outnumbered now by defined state, outnumbered by Democrats almost 3-1. There isn't a single Republican office statewide. The Democrats have not only majorities in the Senate and the Assembly, but they have supermajorities in both. But I believe that because of this issue of homelessness and the crime attendant to it, maybe, just maybe, that might be the match that ignites the rethinking. At least I hope so.
Zeb?
I am disappointed in my colleagues. Is this the attitude the founding fathers would have had? Taking on the most powerful empire the world had ever seen. Now, I'm not saying you need to go get your guns. I mean, Media Matters, calm down if you're listening. But nothing is impossible in the age of Trump. And we were asked, Jennifer asked, what do we need to do as Americans? What do you need to do as Californians? It's very simple. I gave a speech a couple of weeks ago to the Republican Women's Association in a very, very Tony part of wherever I was. And I arrived early to give the speech. The car park to the country club was full. And I walked through the car park and I noticed something strange. Then I gave my speech to these people, hardcore Republicans supporting the president. I said, it's really weird. I came to a Republican event at this club, and the club is full. And outside of my car, there was only one car in the lot with a Trump bumper sticker. And I thought, why is that? And don't give me the, oh, my car's going to get keyed thing. I mean, seriously, we've got a man in the White House who's laid down everything for you, and you're worried about your car getting keyed? You need to stand up for this man, and you need to show his support. And most easy of all, and I don't care how old you are or how technologically challenged you deem yourself to be, if you're not on social media every single day, you are not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. It's really that simple. Even Larry, he's got a wicked Instagram game. I am so impressed. Even if it's just to retweet the president. There is a reason the president has 63 million followers on Twitter alone. Reinforce him. Be what the military call a force multiplier. When you see corruption, when you see the outrages of what's going on in California, take a photograph, take a video, put it on Facebook, because that's how you change and that's how you win.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. We're going to go from Dennis to Mark to Larry to Seb. Everybody has 30 seconds before the world-famous town hall lightning round. 30 seconds here. Dennis, we start with you. The New York Times had an opinion piece this week, and they asked the question, I think it's a pretty good one, too. They asked, why do Trump voters stick with him? Dennis, guys, why do they stick with him?
What's the alternative? That's what it's turned out that he has been a gift of either God or fate. It's turned out that way. But when I supported him after he got the nomination, I said to people, so, well, you know, he's this, he's this, he's this. I said, well, look, hey, folks, there are two doors. Over one door, it says man-eating lion. Over the other, it says maybe a man-eating lion. I will open the maybe a man-eating lion door. That's why we support him, because the alternative is the left, represented by the very New York Times that asked the question.
Mark Levin.
The left will never understand us, and the media will never understand us, and they'll never understand Trump. We like Trump because he's shaking them up. Because he's challenging them. And I'm going to tell you right now, the day he's not president anymore, we're going to miss him greatly. And I'll tell you something else. In my lifetime, he's the only president who, after he talks to the press, I'm laughing hysterically.
Well, I am too, but it might be for different reasons.
Trust me, they're different reasons.
Okay.
But he has the ability, he's got the common touch. He does have a special relationship with an awful lot of people. And I know this because the media are pounding him and pounding him and pounding him every day and trying to undermine what it is that he's projecting, what it is that he's saying, and his character and the way he does what he does. So I agree with Dennis too. Look at the alternative. But I have come to really like this guy and to really support this guy.
I think the reason the Republicans have stuck by Donald Trump is real simple. I was watching some time ago a couple of golfers on a cable channel, and the host said, how can you tell someone's a good golfer? I'm not much of a golfer. And one went through this elaborate, beautiful exercise about where you put your feet, how you have your arm, where you put your hips, where you keep the ball. It was eloquent and beautiful. And the other one said, I look to see where the ball lands. We like where the ball is landing. We like what he's doing about the borders. We like what he's doing about the courts. We like the economy. We like the fact that he's stopped this march towards single payer, towards Medicare for all. We like where the ball is landing. It's that simple.
It's really very easy. They support him and they continue to support him because the people of America felt betrayed for 40 years by both left and right, and they know this man is a fighter fighting for them.
All right, now it is time for the lightning round, which is very exciting and a challenge for our very eloquent speakers up on the panel, because you are going to be limited to one-word answers. How about that?
I have a few recommendations.
We've got a few for you. All
Behave.
right.
First, we want to thank our sponsors, though. Town Hall. Okay,
we'll wait.
one word. Okay,
All
let's
right.
save this. One word, Dennis. One word. Somebody be a
Here we
challenge.
go. They say there's not a lot of backbone in the Republican Party on the bench. So after Donald Trump, who else is there? Dennis?
Haley.
Oh,
DeSantis.
Owens, as in Candace.
It's not 2 words. It's not 1 word. It's 2. Don Jr.
All right, here we go. Town Hall 2019 lightning round. 1-word answers. We'll start with Dennis Prager. Who?
They keep starting with me on these one-word answers.
All right, we'll start with Mark Levin.
That's okay. I'm just noting it's fun.
Who will be the Democratic nominee in 2020?
Warren.
Warren?
I agree, Warren.
Warren.
Doesn't matter.
I'm not a math whiz, but I think that's 2 words.
How about irrelevant? That's 1 word.
All right, Larry, we're gonna start with you, and I'll let you cheat. You can use like 3 words if you have to. Nice. All right, name the outlet, print or broadcast with the most unbiased news.
We can come back on Wednesday if you want.
Prager University.
Seb?
I said Prager University.
What?
What's the most unbiased news?
Yeah.
Prager University.
Right.
SRN.
There you go. All right. Dennis?
SRN.
The network with the most unbiased news, the most effective network is SRN. It is. It's important that you know that. Salem has done immense good in this country. And it does. It deserves your applause and your support. As far as network, let's say, well, thank you for the PragerU thing. All right, Fox News, I think it is basically fair.
Mark?
You said news, right?
That's right.
Not opinion. There's several. In addition to what these gentlemen mentioned, I would say Blaze, Daily Wire, Right Scoop. There's a number of them out there, and this is what I was talking about, that this is the future, the competition with the old cable and the old network TV and so forth. And this is why I think there's a bright future, even though today it's relatively bleak.
Okay, thank you, Mark. This truly is a 1-word answer question here. Town Hall 2019 lightning round. We'll start with Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka down on the end. Will history be made? Will the House impeach President Trump?
No. I mean, if you mean impeach or convict,
We mean impeach in the House.
I don't think so. No.
Larry?
I think there's a good chance they will. They're that diluted, there's a good chance they will. Of course, he won't be convicted in the Senate, but I think there's a good chance he will be impeached.
Mark, and of course, Dennis.
Yes.
Yes.
Don't blame us.
They're too invested. Yes. Don't blame. Exactly. Don't. Yes.
They're just the messengers.
They're invested. They can't go back. And she buckled because the left is a force of nature in the Democratic Party. She's a front for the left. She's useless from our perspective. So she has lost any concept of liberalism or of honor. So it's over. They're invested in this. It's all emotional, but emotions bring down societies. So it's a very difficult time we are in now.
But focus on the Senate, because that's where the battle is. Focus on the Senate.
Absolutely. All right, our final lightning round question. We will start with you, Mark. I think I know your answer. I feel like I'm Karnak or
Is
something.
this 1 word again?
Yes, 1 word. Was the Ukraine call inappropriate? Was the call to Ukraine inappropriate?
I'll do a Gorka. Of course not.
Larry?
No.
Seb?
No.
Dennis?
I'm allowed only 1 word.
Oh, you know.
Okay, I agree with the Wall Street Journal. If he had asked me at the beginning, I would have had him convey this through an ambassador rather than do it as President of the United States. I know broadcasting What can get you in gratuitous hot water? I'm in hot water all the time, but it's never gratuitous. And you have to pick your words very carefully. However, the notion of Donald Trump and picking words carefully are mutually exclusive, and I love him for it. I can live with it, but that's my answer.
Thank you. How about a big round of applause for our panelists? Now, we want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors.
Thank
First
you,
off,
everybody,
David
on behalf
Ortiz
of all of us.
Advisors, college funding experts, Professor Rags, Total Financial Solutions, The Naked Truth Report, Southwest Construction, Drapery Works, and Roger Stewart Clothes.
For all of us at AM870 The Answer, for Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Larry Elder, Dennis Prager, Mark Levin, The Morning Answer with Brian and Jen, thank you for coming to Town Hall 2019.